Okay, folks, so right now we are upstairs in Freeman, the drawing studio, and we have the still life set up, we have the drawing horse with paper set up, and we also have our drawing materials here. So right here we have the pink pearl eraser, the white eraser, kneaded eraser, the what is that, a pen eraser?
Yeah, a click, one of those cylindrical erasers.
Cylindrical eraser. The more erasers you have, the better. And we also have white and black charcoal pencil. HB. Make sure to pay attention to the type of pencil you have because it's going to vary the way that it lays the material on the paper. So next we're going to look at the paper. This is the gray toned Canson paper. As you look at the paper, it's not really apparent on screen, but there is a difference in texture. So right now, are we using the white or the textured or non-textured?
Feels like it's the non-textured, like the smooth side.
Okay, so this is the smooth side.
Feels like it. They're both the smooth side for this particular one.
Usually there's two different sides, but at the moment we may have one that has two smooth. So pay attention to yours because it's going to change the way that the marks are laid down on the paper. Okay, so we have the still life setup. This is the box setup that I told you guys to make. And we have a cloth over the top. We have it lit using this light here, which you guys are going to be using the clamp lights for. And we also have this light back up over here, which is the ambient light so we can draw. And so let's get to drawing.
All right, so we're going to use an HB Hart General's charcoal pencil. And as Aaron says, it comes in different grades. So you want the HB Hart so that you can build your marks. And you start off with a hard pencil and you just build with it. And the darks that you will get will be a deep dark, okay? And the white does not have any kind of grade, so it's just white. And that's the pencil that you should get for this particular assignment. So I'm just going to show you a couple of marks that you can make. So if you want something that is called a hatch mark, then what you would do is to draw in parallel lines. So notice that this is cross-hatching, and when the lines are moving in a parallel manner like this, and I'm just going to show you again slowly. This is called hatching. But anytime you have any two lines that cross, it becomes cross-hatching. And you notice that the more lines you cross, the darker the value becomes. Right? Now, this is very different from this. This is not cross-hatching. I'm not sure what this is. You know, this is just kind of
So scribble.
Scribble, like coloring in your value. So don't do that. Do this.
Now what happens if you draw with too much pressure?
Yeah, you want it to be really light so that if you have too much pressure, you get really dark very quickly. If you can get really light, then what you will be able to do is to create a nice range of values, a wide range of values. If you are heavy-handed, and some of you are heavy-handed, how would you know is when you draw and then you feel an embossed quality at the back of the paper. Then you know you're heavy-handed, like you've pressed down on it. And if you're heavy-handed, then you will lay down a mark that's really dark, like what I'm doing now. Pretend that I'm heavy-handed, as opposed to light-handed. You should be able to tell the difference. Some people like to draw this way, And I actually like to draw this way. Look at how light that is. You can't even really see it.
Would you say that you get more control that way?
No, in some ways, no. Because what happens is that when you're drawing this way, you're drawing with your arm, as opposed to this way with your wrist. So if you're drawing holding the pencil this way, you're holding it and moving, it's controlled by your wrist. So there's a little bit more pressure. If you're holding it this way, there's hardly any pressure, but it doesn't exert as much control. But I like it this way because I can still have some form of control by putting this end of this pencil at the sort of like the middle of my palm and gripping it this way so that I'm drawing, I can get really gesturally and I can get really light. And then when I want to go in and get like a nice line, or I want it to be like really fine tuning it, then I will hold it in this manner so that I have more control because it's a wrist motion. Okay? So notice that how light that is. You can hardly even see it. Okay? All right. So again, if what you want to do is that if you want to create a cross-hatching texture, that's what you need to do. Have more than two lines hatch or cross one another. Okay, and you can go in whichever direction that you want. Sometimes what we'll do is that if an object is round, then some people like to cross hatch this way. This is hatching right now, but then they like to cross hatch. See, right now it's cross hatching. They like to cross hatch this way because it is describing the curvature of that round form. Okay? But to me, if you could do that, so if you're drawing a cylinder or you're doing a sphere, you could do that. You could cross hatch this way so that it emphasizes or accentuates the roundness of the form. However, I feel that that's a little bit unnatural. So to me, I would just kind of cross hatch at a diagonal. And eventually, if you get your gradations of values correct, you will be able to get a three-dimensional volumetric rounded form or spherical form. Okay? So I think that if you go along the plane or to describe the plane of the object itself, then you create this sort of organic quality. So if you're drawing like a tree branch, then if you go according to the roundness of the form with your marks, your hatch marks, then it gives it that very organic quality. Whereas for an inanimate object, you could potentially just cross-hatch with diagonals and it would work perfectly. Okay? So the other thing that we want to try, another technique of creating values is instead of cross-hatching, you could do the more smooth quality, which is you just move your pencil back and forth and you just keep your pencil moving. Try and get it as even as you can. And sometimes you get like really, really dark, then don't stay. The reason why you would get really dark is because if you put down too many sort of marks at one spot. So you just keep moving, don't stay still.
Now, a question.
Yes.
Does the sharpness of your pencil make a difference here?
Yes. In any case, you want to make sure that your pencil is always sharp. Okay? And the reason is because if your pencil is sharp, the point of contact is minimal. It's like really fine. So the lines that you make or the marks that you put on your paper will be fine. If your pencil is dull, and when you draw with a dull pencil, the contact point is much wider. So the mark that you make is much wider, it's much broader.
So would there be a time where a duller pencil would make more sense, or sharp all the time?
I would keep it sharp all the time.
Okay.
Because you want to build it so that your marks, all come together. The dull pencil covers a large area at a time, but compared to a fine point, but the mark is not as sophisticated. Okay? So one way of shading then is to sort of move and continue moving. Because if you stay in the same spot, and that's what I'm doing right now, if you stay in the same spot, it becomes really dark. And sometimes students will say, I don't get it, like how come my shading is so uneven? It's because probably one stayed too long in one spot. Just keep moving, okay? Now the other way of shading to get it smooth could be a circular fashion. Shade in a circular fashion. And for some people, for some students or for some artists, that's what they like to do. That would drive me nuts. I can't do it. I just can't shade it.
So which method would be the fastest?
I mean, it's a method that feels most comfortable to you.
Okay,
You
so
know?
whatever works for the individual.
Yes. So if you feel like some students like to shade shade this way in a circular fashion. To me, it's painful. It's a painful process. I like to shade this way. And I also like to do cross hatching. Now, if you cross hatch a lot, your marks will start to look like this. You know, if say you continue to cross hatch and build and build and build and build. So if it's a dark value and you're trying to build it, but you're cross hatching the entire time, after a while, when you put a lot of marks down on the paper, you won't even be able to see the cross hatching or the cross hatch marks. It'll sort of start to come together and create this nice even value. Okay, so whatever works for you. But I think it's really important to know both types of techniques. Or this, you could also consider this a third technique. But this is very similar to the one that you move evenly. Cross hatching and sort of the even method, I think it's good for you to know that, just so that if you want it to be a little bit more texture, you could create the cross hatching so that the hatch marks will show. If you want it to be really smooth, then you could go for this sort of even layering of marks. Okay, and the same goes with the white pencil. Okay, you would do the same thing. And I would suggest that if you're cross hatching for your entire drawing, then you should keep that consistent, cross hatch throughout the whole drawing. Don't switch back and forth. So don't cross hatch one object and then shade evenly another object and so on and so forth. Unless it's like a shiny object. Then if it's a shiny object or if it's like a glossy object, and you want to create that texture or that surface, that shiny, glossy surface, then maybe you don't want to cross hatch. Okay? Because cross hatching then will create a very specific texture. And that's it with mark making.
All right.